Dr. Jose Alvino Ventura, and welcome to my channel, Medical Perspective on Defensive Tactics. In today's video, we will cover the structure of defensive tactics programs in the United States. So let's get to it.
As a disclaimer, I would like to say that the information contained in this video was obtained via sources which were publicly available from books, media articles, and by law enforcement agencies and private entities who provide defensive tactics training. In the United States, defensive tactics training is decentralized, meaning that there is no national standard or curriculum. Each state has varying standards and requirements for pre-service, which is academy, and annual in-service, which is agency training. The pre-service and in-service training is usually dictated by the state post, which is the Peace Officers Standards and Training Board, or similar entity in each state. Training is not only dictated by the post or similar entity, but also by resources available to each agency and may be hampered by limited staffing and limited budget, as well as fears of injury and lack of interest from the officers themselves and fixation on firearms training. Ironically, according to the FBI, a law enforcement officer is most likely to have an encounter that requires non-lethal force than one that requires lethal force, and many lethal force encounters are due to inadequately handled encounters which could have been resolved with non-lethal force. There are two main ways in which defensive tactics programs may be created and updated: the traditional method and the train-the-trainer models. The traditional method is where an officer is taught defensive tactics in the academy and then receives yearly use of force in-service training where a set of curriculum is reviewed and rarely updated. The train-the-trainer method is where a defensive tactics instructor attends a typically 40-hour training program run by either a law enforcement agency or outside private entity, and at the end of the program becomes certified in a particular system and returns to the department to teach officers new techniques which were adopted. There is also a hybrid model, which is a combination of both the traditional method and the train-the-trainer method, where training is more frequent, maybe once a week, and while a set curriculum may be used, it is updated by defensive tactics instructors who periodically attend train-the-trainer programs. Besides the training offered by their agency or outside training paid for by their agency, many officers choose to get independent training outside their agency setting. If an officer chooses to get independent training, however, whatever is learned may or may not be allowed to be used while on duty, depending on their post or specific agency policies and procedures. As can be seen, defensive tactics training program creation and updating varies wildly from agency to agency. In the state of Arizona, for example, as of 2020, police recruits had to complete a combined total of 585 hours of police academy training in order to become a certified officer. Out of the 585 hours, 40 hours were devoted to the defensive tactics, whose subject matter included takedowns, arrest methods, and other force techniques. In January of 2023, after several high-profile local police use of force cases and a federal investigation, as well as national police use of force cases, the Phoenix Police Department asked for the public feedback on proposed changes to its use of force policy, as well as of use of force training, which would increase the defensive tactics training and use of force training from 40 hours to 80 hours. Just like with law enforcement, security guard use of force training and defensive tactics training varies from state to state, and there is no national standard or requirement. In Arizona, for example, to become a licensed unarmed security guard, you must take an 8-hour course, and within those 8 hours, 2 hours are typically devoted to use of force. To become a licensed armed security guard in Arizona, a person must take, in addition to the 8 hours unarmed course, a 16-hour armed course, which covers use of force, including deadly use of force. Additionally, just like in the law enforcement arena, a security guard may receive additional training by their agency or seek out independent training in defensive tactics. To use a personal example, I have in the past taken an 8-hour course which allowed me to become certified in handcuffing techniques, soft and hard unarmed techniques, baton, conducted energy weapons, and OC spray. To summarize today's video, a law enforcement officer is more likely to have a use of force encounter which requires a less lethal force to be resolved. Most encounters which lead to deadly use of force may have been mishandled encounters which could have been avoided by using proper, less lethal force. Defensive tactics training is dictated by state, post, or similar agency and hampered by staffing and budget constraints as well as officer lack of interest and current events. Defensive tactics training for both law enforcement officers and security guards in the United States is a cobblestone of state and agency-specific standards and requirements. There are two main methods to use to provide defensive tactics training. They are the traditional method, which tends to be slower to change, and the train-the-trainer method, which is more open to change. A hybrid model, which combines both the traditional and train-the-trainer methods, is also used, and this one uses a standardized curriculum, but is updated with greater frequency. And that's a wrap for today's video. I hope this presentation was both educational and enjoyable. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Until next time.